Hi everyone. So last night I recorded a video about the Democratic primary debate. I was in my pajamas, so I figured that I'd just do a quick re-record wearing, something that isn't my pajamas. I'm just gonna jump right into everything. The Democratic debate was 2 nights ago, and we saw 12 candidates who had reached some minimum polling requirements and crossed some donor thresholds that the DNC had set to qualify. I don't think that this was a good idea to have 12 people on the debate stage, but that's where we are. I don't think that this debate is really going to change all that much. There weren't really any sort of standout moments like the one that Tulsi Gabbard had in a prior debate against Kamala Harris, essentially calling her a cop and questioning her about her past positions that she had taken as Attorney General of California. But there were some interesting discussions. There was a discussion on impeachment and how all 12 candidates on the stage support impeachment. Tom Steyer, who was on the debate stage for the first time, had begun this conversation a while ago. But Elizabeth Warren was definitely the first major candidate who did come out in support of impeachment. And she essentially said that she did that right off the gun because she predicted the president would break the law in the future in a similar fashion, which turned out to be right in the sense that he asked the Ukrainian government for a favor in return for military aid. So that was a good start for Warren, but it kind of started spiraling downward in terms of the attacks that were levied against her. First on the area of healthcare, where her and Bernie Sanders have essentially been advocating for this Medicare for All policy, where they want to destroy the health insurance system as we know it, get rid of all private healthcare insurance, and give everyone Medicare. Mayor Pete really came to play, and he essentially said that that's not a system that would work for everyone. He believes that, and I think that this is pretty much, the difference now between moderate and far left Democrats, where Mayor Pete believes in a Medicare for all who want it proposal, where if you can't afford health insurance and want to go on Medicare, you can do so, but if you have a policy that works for you, you don't have to get rid of it, and you can continue private health care as you see fit. Warren also suffered some attacks from Amy Klobuchar as well, and there was one really weird attack by Kamala Harris where she was telling Elizabeth Warren that she needs to advocate for deplatforming the president on Twitter, which, as mind-numbingly stupid as some of his tweets are, that's a dumb argument to try to make on a national stage when there are plenty of issues that can be brought up and many attacks that could be levied against Elizabeth Warren, but that's what she chose. I think Kamala Harris is really trying to whine her way to the presidency. Doesn't seem to be working out too well for her, considering her poll numbers that have just been on a downward spiral ever since Tulsi Gabbard kind of ended her life. In another area, Mayor Pete, again, has, he's kind of vying for that fourth place spot with Kamala Harris right now, and really trying to break that threshold to make it not so much a two-person race as it kind of has been the past few weeks with Biden and Warren. And he's really trying to set himself as a moderate alternative to Joe Biden, where there still are some left-leaning beliefs there, but he went after Beto O'Rourke for his mandatory gun buyback proposal. Essentially, he wants everyone to sell their semi-automatic and automatic rifles back to the government, and if you don't do so, he didn't really have an answer. Mayor Pete grilled him on this. Mayor Pete supports a voluntary gun buyback proposal, which, look, I understand that there's definitely an issue, and I do think that things need to be solved. But I don't know if mandatorily taking people's guns away is something that would work. I definitely think that I'm more on the Mayor Pete end of things, where if you really want to sell your gun back to the government, which I mean I reasonably can't see most people doing, but if you want to do that, you have the option. And Mayor Pete really, really hammered it home on this, that Beto is kind of just spitting out just whatever the hell he wants to gain relevancy, which, I mean, based on his poll numbers, doesn't really seem to be working. He also came at Beto after, Beto was talking about how he has all of this political courage, and Mayor Pete essentially said, listen, bro, don't lecture me on courage, political or otherwise, because, again, the man is the first gay person to run for president at this stature, and also he's a military man. The man fought overseas for our country, which, is definitely respectable. I don't know. I really don't think that this debate is going to change anything. I checked the polls today. There aren't really any that show anything after this debate, so we really can't assess how these bumps go in the future, or if someone tanks. In terms of people's campaigns who I think are going to really falter and die out from here on in, because we are getting into the thick of things, since the first votes are in the beginning of the year next year. But Tulsi Gabbard, I really enjoy her. I honestly think I agree with her most policy-wise on a lot of these issues in the Democratic primary. I disagree with her on a lot also, but I think she's the best policy-wise out of the bunch. But for some reason, she's not resonating well with the Democrats, and because of that, I don't think that she's going to make a debate next time, and I would expect her to end her campaign relatively soon. Beto, I'm pretty sure he's qualified for the next debate, but I think he'll hang on a little bit longer and try to drum up some sort of relevancy for himself. But again, I think he's out. People who might have gained a little bit, I think, this debate, definitely Mayor Pete, I think. So while he was on the attack this time, similarly how Julian Castro, who I also think is kind of done, but Julian Castro is just attacking people, and especially Biden, in just an untasteful, little angry boy kind of way, whereas Mayor Pete, I think his attacks were strong, solid, and legitimate, and definitely did, set him apart from a lot of the other candidates, which is definitely a plus for him. I would expect to see at least some sort of polling bump. And then Amy Klobuchar also did a pretty good job contrasting herself with Elizabeth Warren as that more realistic, moderate approach to the the whole primary and policy aspect. Though I don't necessarily know if she's been resonating with people, she might experience a little bit of a bump, but not something that I would bet my money on. I also just want to say Andrew Yang, I think, is a huge winner here, simply because there was a pretty long discussion about this issue of automation and how automation is changing our economy and displacing workers, and how we're going to be adapting to this fourth industrial revolution, as he likes to call it. I do think he had some solid answers. However, I think the very fact that we're now talking about these issues that a candidate with no political experience came into speaking about is extremely strong. Bernie Sanders actually gave his opinion, and he thinks that there should be a federal jobs guarantee through a Green New Deal. I don't know how that's going to necessarily work, because I don't know how a lot of people would feel about just solely working for the federal government. But at least it's a conversation that is being had. Cory Booker was asked, to choose between that UBI, the freedom dividend that Yang is proposing, and the federal jobs guarantee that Sanders would like to do. Cory Booker's answer was women's rights. That's what he said. I don't know if that's an answer, but that's what we got from the New Jersey senator. Other than that, it was pretty standard, a pretty mind-blowingly terrible idea, again, to have 12 people on stage to share their opinion, where there's so much deep nuances to a lot of these issues that it just can't be covered when you have people speaking for 5+ minutes at a night. Otherwise, we'll see how the polls are in the future, and we'll see what this does. Elizabeth Warren definitely held her own. Totally held her own after all of these attacks were thrown at her. And Biden, I think, kind of swept himself under the radar as well. So I wouldn't see any major increases or gains for either of them. Maybe even a gain from Warren, because she is a good debater, and a lot of legitimate attacks were thrown at her, but it's really hard to stump that woman, which is why in the general election, if she were to win, I do think among anyone else, she has one of the best shots to beat the president, just because I'm not quite sure if he'll be able to do the same thing he did to Hillary Clinton to her, just because Warren's just a little bit sharper and a little less of a criminal. I don't know. But that's my thoughts. I will be back at some point with another video. If you like what I had to say, give me a like, give me a subscribe. If you didn't, comment, tell me my hair is dumb, tell me what is wrong with what I'm saying, and we'll discuss, and I'll reassess maybe. Have a great day.